Hello, I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. I'm a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Today I want to kick off a reading vlog. It's Labor Day weekend. I'm trying to pep myself up, cheer myself up, because I think I've mentioned in a few videos that I was going through an interview process and all that. I didn't get the job. I'm sad for myself, so this is the, being sorry for yourself reading vlog. I think I'm just going to read a lot, maybe clean a little, do some garden maintenance, go to a thrift store, just have a solid weekend. Books. I have to get back onto my reading goals, like always. I read far too many library books. I've been on a weird kick recently where I've been wanting to read kind of spooky, short translated fiction. I didn't actually look at my bookshelves because that's such a specific thing. I didn't even think that I would have anything like that. So I feel like you're missing the coolness of my shirt because it's a Friday. I'm wearing a Friday shirt. If you work in a corporation, you'll maybe know what I mean. This is what I was wearing when I was, rejected. Also, I trimmed my bangs and they look kind of dumb. This is what I have kind of been reading. I haven't gotten very far. It's Super Sad True Love Story by Gary Steingart. I leave this book alone with Al for like 2 minutes and he's chewed the heck out of it. So far, what I've noted from this is that it's very, very stylized. I don't really know how I feel about it at all yet. Big Lewis. Look at how big Louie is. I have a caffeine-free Diet Coke that I'm gonna go pick up because I'm living it large, baby. On my little phone, the books that I've been reading from the library, I've started up on Frieren again, so I've been reading Frieren, the manga. Also finished The Emissary this week by Yoko Tawada. Like, I really do want like ghost story, spooky story, short translated fiction, and what I was being recommended by ChatGPT, which sometimes just gets it so wrong, is just regular translated fiction. So I got suggested The Emissary, which is kind of like a dystopian story. I really enjoyed the way that it was told. Here's what the description says. Japan, after suffering from a massive irreparable disaster, cuts itself off from the world. So that's a huge part of this book, is this isolationist sense, not using loan words anymore, producing their own fruits, really being their own enclosed country. Really enjoyed that perspective. Children are so weak they can barely stand or walk. The only people with any get-go are the elderly. There were all of these mentions about like studies of what's best for children. They're constantly trying to address the problem with the children, and meanwhile, yeah, you have all of these like fairly active elderly people and they're like quite elderly. So it was, again, such a weird, different world than what we live in, which is so fun. Mume lives with his grandfather Yoshiro, who worries about him constantly. They carry on a day-to-day routine in what could be viewed as a post-Fukushima time, with all the children born ancient, frail, and gray-haired, yet incredibly compassionate and wise. I really liked it. The only thing that was kind of a con was it was so brief. It was also nice for it to be so brief because it's just a little blip into a world. You just get a taste, and that's it. And then today I just finished reading The White Book by Hong Kong. This is a novel that basically reads and kind of is like an essay about the color white and various associations with white, where our narrator is recounting and associating and working through how the color white reminds her and is associated with her older sister who died hours after being born. So the description here is a lyrical and disquieting exploration of personal grief written through the prism of the color white. I have never read anything like this before, and again, both of these books were recommended to me by ChatGPT as kind of like on the spookier side. They're not spooky, they are a little bit disquieting though. And the other book that I'm reading as a digital copy is The Vegetarian, also by Hong Kong, which I just did not at all realize that I was reading two books by the same author at the same time. I just was going through this list of recommended books and plugging titles into my library system to see what was available. And the White Book was available, and also The Vegetarian, so I just didn't connect in my brain that those were written by the same person. The Vegetarian, I started reading this when I woke up in the middle of the night with a little bit of anxiety. I was like, I guess I'll read this book until I fall asleep. My full experience so far reading this book has been in the middle of the night, but I was really enjoying it, and so I'm excited to get back into that one. Guys, I trimmed my bangs too short the other day, and now I look so stupid. Hi, it's the next day. I got up early this morning to feed all the animals, and I had some coffee and a little pastry, and now it's later in the day because I slept in after that, or I tried to. I've just been having really high anxiety this morning. Oh, hello there. That was crazy. I have to get up. I have to mow the lawn and tidy up some of the overgrown stuff in the backyard. Last night I didn't read very much, but this morning I read a little bit of The Vegetarian, and again, I'm really enjoying it. I got a package. I recently bought a few books. Let's see. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Not sure how to say that last name, but I have something in the works. So last weekend, I had an idea to try to find some of my favorite musical artists' favorite books. So this is for Pharrell, and this is for Kendrick Lamar. One of the books that I have is for Doja Cat. I was on a step stool and have platform sandals. My kettle is on so that I can get some coffee because I'm such low energy right now. Kafka on the Shore is something I'm associating with Doja Cat just because of one Instagram post that she did. This one's so long, but I already had it. I won't be reading any of these in this video, but just a thought for what I will be doing in the future. I grew a giant sunflower at work. Here it is. I think you should have an ASMR channel. We just got back from a little date. We did lunch at a tapas place. And then we went to a thrift store and got some books and other things. I ended up getting this dress that I'm wearing now. I feel like it fits me really well. Very Elaine, I feel like. The other thing that I got that's really cool is like a library step stool. It's got a bunch of Goodwill stickers on it, but that's what it is. We're gonna have to clean up in this corner and put it over here because I was just talking about how I can never reach the top shelf over here. Cutie pie. Louie. Lou. Why is he being so oblivious? Oh my god. So I saw a bunch of terrible books at the thrift store that I didn't get, but I also got a handful, and not anything that I'm like so thrilled for. I got Shade's Children by Garth Nix. This just seems very pulpy. It seems like it's a futuristic dystopian kind of thing, maybe like a little cyberpunk. Kind of similar to that, I think. I got Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. Never heard of this, I don't think, but it also seems like a little bit of a YA.
Think about me, think about moo.
I'm eating Gresso. We came up with a parody of espresso. about a bunch of cows in a field. And I got this one bowl. I love Sabrina Carpenter. I gotta ask, who's your favorite like pop girly right now? This summer is such a good summer for pop music. I'm a Sabrina Carpenter and Charlie XCX. That's what I'm into. Back when I was in high school, I was a big Lady Gaga and Katy Perry. Loved Katy Perry. Don't know what's going on right now. This seems like a little bit more of a, like another cyberpunk kind of thing. I also ended up getting High Fidelity by Nick Hornby.
Hi, YouTube.
All I've ever read by Nick Hornby is A Long Way Down. I also got Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen. This seemed interesting. I got My Year of Meats by Ruth Ozeki. I've heard the name Ruth Ozeki a lot. It's kind of funny because I'm reading The Vegetarian right now, which if this is called My Year of Meats, it seems like it's almost the opposite. I don't know, this kind of seems like something I might be interested in reading right away. I also got The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White, based purely on the fact that I love Charlotte's Web, so I thought maybe reading about a swan with a trumpet would be cute. And I got The Rough Field by John Montague. I don't really know anything about this, but I read at the back that it is the most significant attempt in poetry to understand the troubled history of Ireland's north. Compelling. I also got 2 children's books. One is Blast Off. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was cute. It's got cool illustrations that seem like they would be particularly good for young children, even though the text is quite a lot. And I also got this, Lily and Willie in Love, because it is in both Italian and German, and it's also in English, so I thought that would be just a really great book to have around. I spent quite a lot of time in Italy. I lived there for 6 months. And I never really spoke Italian, but I definitely kind of learned Italian to some extent. And then for German, I took a German class. I was in high school, but I took a college class of German. When I was like in high school, I was like really interested in learning a bunch of languages. And I started learning a whole bunch, like ASL, German, obviously Spanish. I know quite a bit of Spanish, I guess. I took a class in French. And then I did self-study of Arabic. Don't know anything worth anything in any of those languages except for Spanish. Now I'm pooped and I think I'm just gonna read on the couch for a little bit. I tried to watch qualifying for F1, but totally just took a nap instead. But I had something that I forgot to talk about. The conversation that we overheard at the tapas restaurant. We were sat outside next to this table that was some older people and some younger people, but they wouldn't stop talking about their eyes. There was a woman who had 5 cornea transplants. And the other woman that she was talking to also had like 4 cornea transplants. And I didn't know that that was so common. I still don't know if that's very common. It just made me think so much about like, how the hell does any of that work? They were going into great detail about how it did work, but I'm just thinking like, where do they get these corneas from cadavers? Like, where do the corneas come from? Why do you have to retransplant them so frequently? Then, I thought we'd moved on from this, like, eye talk. But then the guy starts talking about how, like, 20 years ago, a doctor found that he had, like, a tumor in the back of his eye or whatever. And so every 2 years for the last 20 years, he's been getting CT scans to make sure that it doesn't grow. This last time he got his CT scan, so it's been 20 years, it grew quite a lot. So he has a growing tumor, and he has to get brain surgery. They have to drill like a big hole in his skull, and anyway, I was like, this is the grossest and most interesting conversation I've ever overheard at a restaurant. I'm gonna go water my front garden. So I've definitely never used this angle before, but hello. I have some stuff from the garden. Garlic chives, lemongrass, peppers, oregano, lemon thyme perennial kale, some amaranth. Oh shoot, I was gonna go get arugula and dandelion greens. I gotta go do that. I also have a lemon, and I'm gonna make a bean salad. Oh, and I have like a Roma tomato. I have this. I also have a little bit of roasted sweet corn and this little kind of poorly pollinated cucumber from my garden plot at work. Hello, it is Sunday morning. I'm going to dye my hair red now. Here's what the hair's looking like. I feel like it looks pretty good. Although slightly patchy, especially like right here. But overall, not bad. I'm gonna go plant some plants out in the front yard. I was trying to figure out an audiobook that I could listen to while I'm doing that because I've been listening to so many like YouTube videos recently, and I'd really like to listen to a book. You don't even know how much time I spent looking up various different books to see if my library offered them as an audiobook, and they were either all unavailable currently or the library does not have them. So I'm going to have to put in a little bit more work to try to pick out a library book for myself so that I have something to listen to, because I have to do a little bit of digging to put in some potted flowers into the ground. I have this little patch of garden that off and on tried to put some stuff in there, like, I don't know, I just never had very much luck in this space. So I have plants to put in there now. We also watched the F1 race in Monza, and that was such a treat. I was so dead tired. I kept falling asleep in it, but I knew it was a good race. I like kept like trying to wake up and pay attention, but anyway, it was a good race. Now to pick out a book. This was a bit of a slog. It took at least 10 minutes, probably more like 15 minutes to find a book, but I found one. So what I have checked out is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Earlier this year, I tried to read The Only Good Indians, and to be fair, I did not at all realize that Stephen Graham Jones was a horror author, because I'm just not in that world. I just saw it as something that was recommended. I wrote it down. Then I started reading it for the Buzzwordathon at the beginning of the year. Anyway, I couldn't get through it. I didn't like it at all. That's why I'm very worried. I know a ton of people love Stephen Graham Jones, and they love The Only Good Indians, but I did not like it, so that's why I'm worried. But this was the only book that was available. I also put a hold out on a few books, one being Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Claw, Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. I would like to say thank you to Pretty in Paper Cuts and Ashley's Little Library, because both of those videos were very helpful. Now I'm gonna plug in this little audiobook and I'm going to plant some plants. Flowers are planted, and I'm about halfway through Night of the Mannequins. I liked maybe the first quarter of this, and by liked I just mean like it was fine. I hate this. I want to stop reading it. I have basically zero interest reading a story about a young man slowly going insane or like rapidly going insane. Like I've had no interest in reading about somebody's like psychotic break. I don't want to hear about it. So anyway, I'm not having fun pretty much at all. It's just so sad. I think there's some aspects of like, oh, it's kind of funny or whatever. It's just sad. It's not entertaining. The sun has set now. I just finished reading 2 of the children's books that I picked up from the thrift store. Blast Off by Linda C. Kane and Susan Rosenbaum, and illustrated by Leo and Diane Dillon. This was a very simple book, both in illustration and in story, but I liked it. It is about a little girl who is obsessed with being an astronaut, and she finds some junk and she builds herself a little spaceship, and then she blasts off into space, and then she comes back and talks to her friends, who are kind of mean. So that was a little weird, but anyway, this one was okay, but very, very just for children. And then I also read this book, which is translated from Italian into German and English. This one takes a very weird turn. So it's called Lily and Willie in Love. This is Willie. He is a white horse with black hair who hates the cold, but he's from Europe. And it literally just says a European country, which is so funny because they have like a little Italian flag on their ship, and like all of the text is in Italian. He has his best friend, which is Lily, who's also a white horse with a black mane. This is his doctor. It's called Dr. Blackie, and he comes from Africa. I was like, what? Willie is now obsessed with the idea of going to Africa because he hates the cold. Willie's mom goes and makes him like a full black sweater. Him and Lily get married. So I'm telling you the whole story. I hope you don't mind. Also, the illustrations are wild. There's one where the moon is just crying. Like, why? Why is the moon crying? They, on their honeymoon, decide to go to this hot country in Africa where Dr. Blackie is from. On the course of their travel, Lily is pregnant. Willie is like continually cutting strips of his black sweater and like giving them to Lily, so they end up starting to look like zebras. And then when they get to Africa, they look like zebras, and they have their baby, and their baby looks like a zebra. How? It was a little weird. I actually so enjoyed the illustrations. They have their forest friends, and this guy is my favorite. I think it's a fox. Then they're like, well, our woodland friends can come visit us in Africa. And so you can see later this little weird fox has like a backpack on. Loved the illustrations. Thought that was so fun. And the story was crazy. I had a great time with this one, honestly. Now the question is, what am I doing? I just got a piece of book mail, so I'm gonna open it up. Oh, no, what the hell is this? Oh, this is so exciting. I got a book recommended by How the Creator for that vlog that I was talking about earlier. This looks beautiful. It's R. Crumb's Dream Diary. I'm so excited for this. It's just such a beautiful little book. I have been reading The Vegetarian this morning. I got to a point where we're in the brother-in-law's perspective. It took me a little bit of time to understand that that was what was going on. This book's a little bit tough to get through because she just doesn't have good people around her. Just got back up from reading a little bit of The Vegetarian, and I am just so invested in that story, I guess. The only problem I've been having reading it is that I keep falling asleep. I'm like a little exhausted and I have like a lot in my brain. So I did read Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I did, as we all expected, hate it. I didn't like it at all. That's basically it. I just finished it because I wanted something to listen to, and I was like, well, I'm already halfway through it, so let's just finish it up. And anyway, I ended up giving it a 2-star rating because it wasn't like it was expressly bad. Like it wasn't written poorly or anything. It's just so not for me. That was how I felt about that. And now I'm gonna go do the dishes and read The Yellow Wallpaper through LibriVox. My cat Lou has been so into this little stair step that I still have to do some cleaning up. I finished a load of dishes and I finished reading The Yellow Wallpaper. Really enjoyed that. It escalates gradually. Ultimately, you get to a wild place. It's about a woman who has been having some psychological problems. She has just had a baby, so it might be a little bit of like postpartum depression. She is being taken care of by her husband, who's also some sort of doctor. He has her up in this room that used to be a nursery, and it has this yellow wallpaper, and she is just so fixated on this yellow wallpaper. I didn't really know where it was gonna go, but I really enjoyed where it ended up in a weird way. You might think it's slightly hypocritical that I enjoyed the yellow wallpaper, but I didn't enjoy Night of the Mannequins. I think there's a key difference where in the Night of the Mannequins, it's kind of supposed to be like a little bit funny, I feel like maybe I'm just getting the tone wrong. And like our main character is like the bad guy. Whereas I feel like in the yellow wallpaper, you're clearly supposed to have some empathy for her. Whereas I feel like the empathy for the main character in Night of the Mannequins is more reader dependent. Like it's not a necessary part of the story, I guess. And that's what I have a hard time with. Baby boy. I don't know what to read. That was such a short story, and I still want to read something kind of similar, but I'm really striking out with my library recently. I've placed so many things on hold though recently. I'm gonna have like a huge stockpile of stuff coming in over the next couple weeks. So I just filmed some videos and I have to put all the books away, which is always such a painful part of filming a bunch of videos. I put a bell on the boy. I put a collar with a bell on him, and he hates it. I have to snug it up a little because he keeps screwing around with it. So in case he gets out, everybody knows that he exists with a house because we have so many strays. Also the bell for the birds and all that. And I did get him a name tag. You can see it's a penne and it says Big Al. And I also got one for Clover that is a ravioli. I did also clean the stove today. So, doing pretty well. I have to say, I feel like Operation Be Happier is actually working, but I do have to pick out another audiobook. Hello, hello. We have a guest appearance from Pebble. An update on my reading. Well, I guess another update. I did eat dinner and I watered the garden. I also am now on page 112 of The Vegetarian. It is making me so uncomfortable. I think it's good. But it is making me very uncomfortable. I also started reading The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, a horror classic, and I am 10% through that. I just listened to that to do some more dishes. What's up? It is now Wednesday, and I wanted to give a real quick update about my reading. I had another one of those really super fun, anxiety-riddled nights last night, and I did read quite a lot more of The Vegetarian. I am now about 80% through it. I'm now in the sister's perspective. So this is all about this one specific woman who stops eating meat. She does it in quite a bit of an unhealthy way. Her family is really involved. The first section of this book is told from the perspective of her husband. The second section of this book is told from the perspective of the brother-in-law, and now it's from her sister's perspective. The middle section made me so uncomfortable. I was like, what am I reading? What am I reading here? I don't know. It's just such a sad story. It's about this woman, to some degree, losing her mind. I've also been reading The Haunting of Hill House, but I haven't picked that up for about a day now. So I don't exactly remember where I left off. Things are starting to get legitimately scary. The initial part of this book is just a wonderful ambiance setup of this really nervous woman arrives at this haunted house, and she's been welcomed there by this man. Then this other woman arrives and they're kind of having an okay time together, and then this man arrives, and there's just this setting of like, there's something a little off about the house. Everything's slanted, there's no right angles, it's like a disorienting place to be in. It's also surrounded by hills, so it's very dark. And now I've gotten to a section where genuinely scary things are starting to happen. It is Thursday, and I have an update about The Haunting of Hill House. Yet again, I have read a book about somebody going insane. I finished it. I did like it. I thought it was a solid story. I could definitely see it like playing out, but then there's the additional element of like how it reads and how people are feeling inside. I loved our character, Eleanor. I really enjoyed reading her. I did like the ending, and overall I thought it was a solid read. Whoa! What's going on, guys? Peb. Hey, Peb. Jesus Christ, Pep. Get it together. She is just the most temperamental little girl. There wasn't anything that made it really stand out to me, but it was good. So now I am going to try to tuck in and finish reading The Vegetarian. I had, yet again, another night where I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning last night, you know, riddled with anxiety or whatever, and I read a little bit of The Vegetarian last night. When riddled with anxiety and having trouble sleeping because of said anxiety, it would be good to not only be reading about a slow descent into madness. This is something that I've learned through the course of this vlog. I just finished reading The Vegetarian by Hong Kong. It was unlike probably anything I have ever read before. So this whole story centers around this particular woman who one day decides to go vegetarian, and this is very unusual and unique. She's always been a good cook and very familiar with working with various meats and fish and stuff, and so it's a pretty big shock to her husband and her family. And she's also doing it in an unhealthy way. She isn't taking into account her nutritional needs. Basically how this book starts, it follows her through a fairly severe mental decline, or a fairly catastrophic mental health, not episode. I'm thinking the word episode, but I mean something more severe than that. She's really suffering. I didn't really expect it to be like that. I didn't really expect it to be so serious. What I got, being so far from my expectations and from what I thought a book could even be, it was very good. Big Al is immediately behind this camera on the table doing weird things, so I'm gonna grab him. This book brought something to me that I just fully wasn't expecting. I didn't know what I was getting into. Don't particularly know that this is what I wanted. Ultimately, I'm going to give it a 4-star review. I did want to read a section of this review because I feel like it puts some of my thoughts into words. Then the second act hits, and I realized this book is something completely different than what I expected. I was mildly annoyed at the kind of abrasive shift away from what I wanted the book to be, but once I got over myself and continued to read, I loved the book for completely different reasons. I didn't even know why I liked it, really. I kind of felt awkward at times, but then I got over myself again. So this was a review by Justin. So anyway, thank you, Justin, for putting my thoughts into words as well. It is interesting, having read The White Book by Hong Kong just earlier last week. This was such a different experience and a very different vibe. I'm in the dark, and I think I'm gonna go turn a light on and wrap up this whole vlog. I went into this vlog on Friday evening thinking I really needed something to get me through feeling down about myself, and I did. We got through it. I'm fine now. I'm moving forward. I also got to read a lot of books. So I thought I'd go through and recap what I read. Since the beginning of this vlog, I read 6 books. All of them were short, but 2 of them were especially short because they were children's books. I finished reading Night of the Mannequins, a book I wholly did not enjoy. I finished the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and I really enjoyed that. I think I will be thinking of that story for a long time. I also read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I also thought that this was a fully solid story that I did enjoy. I actually kind of enjoyed being with our main character Eleanor and like kind of thinking about being in the woods, thinking about being in this house. Weirdly enough, it was kind of comforting. And I also just finished reading The Vegetarian by Hong Kong. I'm happy that I did read this book because I'd seen it floating around I feel like it had a moment where it was present in a lot of places. I'd heard that it was about a woman who stopped eating meat. I didn't know at all what that story was about, so now I know. I also read 2 children's books, Blast Off and Lily and Willie in Love. Honestly, a wonderful time with Lily and Willie in Love. That was unexpected and fun. Overall, a good time. A good time for me and hopefully all of you. So I'd like to hear in the comments, what is your go-to, I'm feeling down and I want a little cheer up. What is your go-to either genre or book itself? Because I feel like where the direction that I went, which was descent into madness, was an interesting way to go. I don't know if I would recommend it. In some ways it was nice because I could know that I wasn't that bad, but also I have been having some struggles with like not sleeping very well, and then you're like, okay, maybe I'm gonna get there. So anyway, it's maybe a little too relatable. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Like and subscribe, and I will be back again soon.